Let's talk about test plans, which is pretty important as it is very distinguished from test concepts. And also, let's talk about test artifacts. So the test plan documents, first of all, the general information about the system in the test context. So there may be an overlap with the project plan, but you're looking at all the general information from a testing point of view. And it, of course, also has all the specifics about the testing itself. And the test concept is one of that, but the content itself is much more. So, for example, you have information about the test reason, the scope, what is not in scope, timeline, the test criteria, and so on. So basically everything that you need to do the testing and all the information that you gather about the testing. So basically the test plan is the architecture of the system testing for a specific test object. And it usually comes in the form of a document that is documented somewhere within the project so that everyone of the test team and the project can reference to it for gathering information or help in decision making. And it may be that within the project you have just one test plan, you put in all this information and that's it. But when a system gets more and more complex and you want to have a very sophisticated planning, you can divide a test plan into strategic documents and operational documents. So it depends on the wanted detail of your planning, whether all the types make sense for you or not. So we will have a look at the different types of test plans. But most of the people in project, they do not use all of them. And it depends on the detail of planning you want and whether all those types make sense or you just use one or pick specific ones. And in terms of knowledge, sometimes it's very helpful to have an overview about the area of possibilities and what exists, so that you know how to operate and what to use in a proper way then. So starting with the strategic test plans. So here you can have a test plan concept, which you start writing at the beginning of the test project. And it's a high-level overview and defines the area of test. It also is like the basis for creating the test setup. It helps with resource allocation and is then the baseline of a master test plan. So that's then the first official document, which is the generic test plan for a project. And it takes all components and features of a system into account. It also incorporates all the various test triggers and so on. And from those, the more operational test plans derive. So here you have a test plan schedule, which focuses on the timeline for specific tests, test trigger, components, features, etc. So it outlines the test trigger and schedules the test activities therefore. Then the subtest plan is based on the master test plan and it applies it for a specific component or feature. And in the end, you have a test execution plan, which also derives from the others, but specifies which tests are to be executed at which point in time, where, and in which order. So it has all the information that is then used by a tester for the test execution. At this point, we can also talk about test artifacts in general. Test artifacts are all documents or entities that are relevant for the system test. So on the one hand, you have the project-based artifacts. Here, a central document is the project plan, which is the official document within the project that you operate, and it's managed by the project manager. And then you have requirements, which are all kinds of information that describes and define the product. So hopefully you have a very dedicated document with specifications and requirements, but then beyond that, usually within a project, you have other documents that are used to describe a product and therefore also helpful for the testing. And coming to the artifacts that are within the test team and test project, you have the test plan, and also the test cases, which are the test specification created by the test team and used for the execution. And you have the issues, which are written forms of tasks and open topics. Beyond that, of course, there are many other artifacts, but those outlined here are the most important ones and the essentials. Let's have a closer look at issues and the types of them. So if you file an issue or raise an issue, it's some kind of problem or open topic or question. And if you confirm that there is something that went wrong, you have an error. And an error can lead to a defect. A defect itself is discovered in the static test, and a defect can then lead to a failure, which is something wrong in a dynamic test. So when you execute a software or use the product. It is important to know that failures also can therefore happen due to environmental conditions. And if it happens, it can lead to a bug or also failure mode, which is a state that has a notable impact.